Let's do a little energizer. Do you want to help me, Joe?
Thank you.
Because Joe is familiar with this. And it's called laughter yoga.
Interesting.
Have you heard of it? Yeah. You can actually find it on YouTube. There is such a thing. It's not yoga, but it does some of the things that yoga does in a very short time. It opens up your breathing and your stretching and gets you re-energized after a break. So I need everybody to stand up.
Stand up.
Stand down. Stand up.
And then when I go this way, you go this way to that wall. And when I go this way, you go that way. So I'm like a mirror. Okay? 1, 2, 3. Ha! Ha! Joe, why are you doing that? We're all going this way first. And then we're going that way. Okay, start again.
Joe.
This way. Mirror. This way.
Yeah.
This way first. Yeah. There's 2 ha's and 3 ho's. And let's just stand with it. Okay.
Xong rồi thêm nách. I got too carried away with that. And exhausted myself. Now we're going to watch, do something, a little change of pace, and watch a short video. It's a little longer than 10 minutes. It's produced by the U.S. Embassy's Department of English Language Programs. It's a few years old, but the points in it are still valid. It's part of a bigger program called Shaping the Way We Teach English, which is a teacher training course online. And if you're interested in that, you can find all the videos on YouTube. All the videos are on YouTube. There's like 15 modules. I'm just going to show you module 13 about peer observation. So most of you are doing supervisor observation, but there's also an opportunity to encourage peer observation in your school. And you can use some of the same techniques in peer observation from
peer observation in your supervisory observation. So pay attention to the stages of the observation process and see if they do anything to develop the teacher self. So it'll come in parts, and we can start the video now.
The two most common are summative observation, in which another teacher or an administrator observes the class. The purpose is evaluative and may result in a rating of some kind. And formative observation, in which two teachers or peers classes. The purpose is to improve teaching practices and to engage in a systematic form of professional development. The focus in this module is on formative or peer observation. Formative observation can benefit both the observed teacher and the teacher doing the observation. In order to do so, it must be carefully organized. We will follow some teachers through the 3 phases of a successful observation. First, preparing for the observation, then observing in the classroom, and finally, the post-observation debriefing. Module focus, introduction. For peer observation to work well, teachers must be trained in the observation procedure and in how to give productive, useful feedback to each other. In order to be successful, peer observation also requires that administrators see the need for peer observation, support training for the process, and create a system that allows teachers time for observing each other. In addition, administrators should guarantee that information will remain confidential and will not be used for summative purposes. Given these conditions, peer observation can allow teachers to see each other's teaching styles and reflect on their own practices, bring about positive changes in classroom learning for students, and when done with care and professionalism, it can strengthen relationships among teachers in schools. Number 1, viewing points. Preparing for the observation. Video segment number 1. Use the pre-observation guide in the manual as you watch teachers getting ready for a class observation. Look for answers to the questions, what information do they exchange during this initial talk? What information do they plan to collect during the observation? How did the teachers interact with each other?
So which of your classes am I observing? Okay, this is going to be the 110, the lowest of the 3 writing classes. So this class there, basically just starting out getting all the basic information about writing essays in English. Okay. And can you tell me a little bit more about their, well, I haven't taught that class before. But they're, usually, it's a mixed situation that we often have students in the class who have very good speaking and listening skills, while their writing skills are really low. And sometimes we have students who've never been in a writing class, they've never been in a speaking class, they've been in a listening class, they've done all their studying basically from grammar books, so they'll have, all their skills will be low. So we have students who have very mixed abilities, they're not all the same.
Sounds pretty challenging. Okay, here's another question for you. What is the teaching point of the lesson that I'm going to see?
Okay, so the day that you come in, the students are actually going to just be starting to look at essay organization. All of these students have a lot of writing experience in their own countries. They're familiar with specific styles of writing. So that's what we tell them in the 110. You know how to write. We're just teaching you to write in a different way. You're learning a new style. So what they're going to be doing that day is we're going to look at introductions, and we'll talk about how to give general information, how to write a clear main idea right in the beginning, paragraph. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the body of the essay, developing your ideas, rolling out ideas, trying to think of what type of details would support your idea. Now, of course, since this group isn't doing something like a research essay, they're writing about their own experience. So they don't have to worry about getting statistics or quoting or things like that. They're really just learning how to develop what information that they already know. And maybe we'll get to a conclusion. I'm not sure. We'll do conclusions that day. But That's the hardest part of a lot of writing for anybody, just getting everything you want to say said before you get to the conclusion, and then not knowing how to finish up. So we'll talk a little bit about conclusions, if maybe that day. I'm not sure if you're going to see that.
Good, good. That sounds very interesting. I've got one more question I have you, and that is there anything in particular that you want me to pay attention to while I'm observing you?
Yeah, well, since this is a 110, since there's such a low-level class, and as I mentioned, they have very different listening abilities and speaking abilities, I'd like you to pay attention to the language I'm using. Is the language I'm using, does it seem to you that it is appropriate for a lower-level class in which some students may still have a very limited vocabulary? Okay. I'm worried that I may be talking, addressing most of my language to the students who have more listening skills. So I'd like to know if that's happening. And the other thing is the sequencing and rhythm of the whole lesson. Does it feel like I'm going too fast for them or too slow? Does it seem like it's a very natural process for them to go from one activity to the other? Sometimes I'm afraid that I might be rushing through something.
Okay, yeah. Sure, that sounds great.
Okay, great.
Okay, I look forward to it.
Okay, so that was, so let's look at the viewing points first.
Summary. In this preparation phase, we saw that teachers spoke in a friendly and respectful way to each other. The teacher learned something about the kind of classes that she would observe, and the teacher chose the observation focus points for her own class.
A lot of writing experience in their own countries. They're familiar with specific styles of writing. So that's what we tell them.
Number 2, viewing points. Observing in the classroom.
Okay, so on this section, we just have the summary of preparing for the observation. This was for peer-to-peer, but you could also do it supervisor to teacher. What were some of the interesting points? Do you usually have a pre-observation conference like that? I remember when I was observed in the U.S. teaching ESL, and I think most places, we never had a pre-observation conference. It was just, I'm going to come to observe you. Tomorrow, I'll see you there. So there was nothing in advance. So what advantages do you think this has to have? And it wasn't very long, right? It was 5 minutes. What are the advantages to a pre-observation conference? A little louder? To be more well prepared. Both the teacher and the observer can be more well prepared. And what else? I'm hearing something. Lovely.
To be clear objective.
Yes, to meet the clear objective.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to be doing. And how did they decide what the objectives were of the lesson and of the observation? How did they decide?
They will provide the good point to the student when they end of their lesson.
Yeah, but how did these two teachers decide what the observer was going to look for? Was she going to look for, did she have a big checklist? Or she just going to look for a couple of things in the lesson?
Actually, normally whenever we start the lesson, we also have the aim at the other side of the whiteboard, and the observer can check by that.
Yeah, but how did they decide in this video what to look for?
Obviously,
Some people are saying something, but you're speaking very quietly.
Okay, some part they agreed on the focus point that they can apply in their own classroom as well. We can say like when they go and observe, they just focus on the point that they want to be improved. For example, if they focus on the classroom management, they can go and see only the classroom management in here.
Exactly. So the teacher who's being observed has input and what we call a buy-in to the observation. If you as the observer, whether it's a peer or a supervisor, are making all of the decisions, then the observee, the teacher, feels kind of not part of the process. But here with the pre-observation conference, the teacher was able to say, well, I feel that I need to work on these things. I'm not sure about these things. And she was able to say that because the observer said, is there anything that you want me to pay closer attention to? So the observer may have some other things to look at, but she's going to specifically look for the things the teacher wants to work on. So the teacher is in charge of his or her own professional development. I really like this model because then you have, the teacher has more investment in it. And instead of it being like a punishment, oh, I'm being observed, I'm going to get check marks. It's like, oh, I'm going to be observed, and that way I'm going to get some help, some assistance, some input to become a better teacher. It's more like a coach. I'm going to get some coaching. And so they set out the rules. The teacher said, this is what we're going to be doing in class. These are my objectives. And these are who the students are in the class. And I want you to pay attention to these certain things. Let's move on. So that was the first step. So we have 3 steps to the observation. The just like a lesson. The pre-writing, the writing, the post-writing. Here we have the pre-observation, the observation, and the post-observation. So let's move on to the observation.
Video segment number 2. In this phase, you will see the teacher as she carries out an observation. See the manual for examples of observation tools or guides. As you watch the video, look for answers to the questions, where does the observer sit? What teacher behaviors do you notice? What about the observer behaviors?
People in different cultures all over the world have different systems of vocabulary. Yes. Yes. In most cultures, people live in extended families in which several generations share the same house. Okay. So before we go on, I mention something about the thesis. A lot of times when I first start teaching students to write, we like to tell them the thesis goes last in the introduction. Because that's the easiest thing to do. But it's uncomfortable. But it's the easiest place to do. Now let's look at paragraph number 3. Earthquakes. Number 2. So we're starting out with number 2. Earthquakes are the most destructive natural disasters known to humans in terms of the billions of deaths and billions of dollars in property loss that they cause.
Summary. In this phase, the teacher who was being observed simply taught class as usual. The teacher who was doing the observation sat quietly at the back of the class and took notes. At no time did the observer interrupt or interfere with the teaching of the class. Number 3, viewing.
Okay. So what happened during the observation process? Yeah, the observer just observed.
Just observe.
Yeah. Sat in the back. It took some notes. Yeah.
No interruption.
No interruptions. I know that really takes a lot of self-control, right? Especially if you think the teacher's doing something crazy, right? You want to jump up and say no, or wait, let's do it this way. But that's not your role. Your role is just to observe. And what about the teacher? What did she do?
As usual.
Yeah, she just talked as usual. She didn't seem nervous. She didn't seem nervous. I sometimes when I've been observed, especially early in my career, I would be nervous. And the observer would have like a checklist of 25 things. So, does anybody have a huge checklist of 25 things that you use? All in one lesson? 50? How many things do you think you could observe in one classroom? In one class sitting? Did you say 3 to 5 or 35?
Category, for example, we have classroom management, the teaching of the children involvement.
So you divide them into categories. But I mean, I'm just curious if you sit there and make a checklist, like how many items, even if they're in categories.
We don't remember.
So how many things do you typically observe in one class sitting?
12 main points.
12?
12 main points.
12 main points in one class. Okay. Okay. Yeah, 12 is better than 30. I've known some schools that have like single spaced all the way down one sheet of paper and then another sheet of paper checking them off. It's like, and maybe you can observe all those things, but it's too much information for the teacher to get input on 35 things for one lesson. So think about maybe cutting back if you can. I know your schools have certain rules and you can't break those rules, but maybe doing some in more detail, the ones that really need work, and maybe not checking off so many.
One question.
Yes.
Peer observation, should we have the formal form or just like the special?
Well, in this particular case, because this video is about peer observations, it's purely formative, only to help the teacher. So no report goes to the principal or the head teacher or anything. So you don't need a form.
Yeah, what I mean is that from an example, like more careful than some of these. You don't have to set like a specific criteria for checking their.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, when it's formative, you don't need to check off all these things. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I know if it's summative that you have to do for your school, that's a whole different thing. But if you can try to maybe incorporate some of the coach approach needs, or think about peer assessment, what's the number one drawback to peer assessment or peer observations? What do you think is the number one problem, the number one drawback, negative, to peer assessments? If you say, oh, I would love to do peer assessment, peer observations, but
one problem that I didn't anticipate when they write the feedback. For example, I provide the feedback to my teacher, my friend, but the student doesn't accept it.
oh, okay, that's not what I was thinking about. But we can talk about that later. Yeah, they don't want to accept the feedback, and that's natural.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that they're bad. We want to hear we're good. That's why we like to use the sandwich.
Yeah.
When I was attending writing workshops back in the U.S., we would all go in and we'd read our stories to the whole group, and then we get this horrible feedback because people were really mean because they wanted to show up. It's like, I'm reading my story, and then all 50 or 40 of you get to say, oh, I didn't like your story because this. Oh yeah, I agree with him, your story was bad because this. And it's really difficult to accept that. So that's why we use a little sandwich. Positive, a suggestion for improvement, and another sandwich. And another issue with peer observations is time. Teachers don't have so much extra time to go sit in another teacher's classroom, plus have pre and post observations. So it does take time, unless you can incorporate that into the day sometime. So, yeah, time, and maybe the teacher won't accept your feedback. And she doesn't always have to, but it should be something to think about. Okay, let's go to part 3.
No time did the observer interrupt or interfere with the teaching of the class. Post-observation debriefing. Video segment number 3. Look for answers to the questions, what information do the teachers exchange in the debriefing? What does the observer like about the class? What suggestions for improvements does she make? How does the debriefing session end?
Linda, that was a really great class.
Do you like being back in a 110 class again?
I've never been to 110 class, so it was a new experience for me.
Oh,
Yeah, I was very impressed. Yeah, maybe in the future I'll try to teach them. Yeah, it was I just really liked your approach, and I thought it was very creative, and I thought the students were very involved, and it was wonderful. Yeah,
I like that class. They're really sweet. They try hard.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely, I can tell. I took some notes, and I just wanted to give you some feedback on some things I thought you were doing beautifully. The first part was you were giving instructions. And this is a lower level group than mine, and so it's quite different than it was on my class. But I was very impressed at how clear you were with your instructions, and you were, I noticed that you were not paraphrasing. You were actually repeating instructions.
Yeah, I try to avoid paraphrasing with very low groups, because the problem with a very low group, if someone has very low listening skills and I'm paraphrasing, they don't necessarily know that I'm saying the same thing again in a different way. So they don't think they've missed the first thing, and now they're trying to understand the second thing. So I'm actually making it harder for them to understand if I paraphrase.
You know, very interesting. Thank you. I mean, I'm learning from this, so thank you very much. It was great. I had one small piece of feedback. Do what you will with it. But I felt at times you were speaking a little quickly. For example, you sometimes were speaking faster with your 110 class than I would with my 112. Now, I didn't notice the students, reacted negatively, but it was just a personal reaction.
I think you're right. I think it's something that I know I do. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of all my classes, doesn't matter what level they are, I tell them I have a tendency to speak too fast. And it's not rude. You have to raise your hand and tell me, please slow down.
And do they ever do that?
Sometimes, yes, people do. They raise their hand and they say, Belinda, you are speaking fast, and I slow down. So
And that's not a bad place for them to practice that. Yeah.
So in some ways, I hope that this thing that I do,
Yeah.
that's a problem for them, also helps them have more confidence in talking to the teacher. But I'll pay attention to it because obviously, being low level, I don't want them to feel like they never know what's going on or they're embarrassed to ask me to slow down too often.
Yeah.
So I can monitor myself.
Well, as a very small person. So, anyways, thank you so much. I learned so much from watching your class. It's great.
Summary. In this final phase, the teacher consulted the notes that she took during the observation. She complimented her colleague on strengths in her teaching. She asked questions about points that she didn't understand, and she made positively worded suggestions for improvements. Things ended just as they started, on a friendly and respectful note.
So, anyways, thank you so much. I learned so much from watching your class. It's great.
Module focus. Summary. The focus in Module 13 has been on teachers and peer observations. We followed some teachers through the 3 phases of the observation process in which they prepared for the observation, one teacher observed the other in the classroom, and participated in a post-observation debriefing. In what ways do you think formative observation could be of benefit to you and other teachers in your educational setting? If you are already conducting formative observations, are there ways in which they could be improved or better supported? As you peer into the future and seek opportunities for your own professional development, keep peer observation in mind as a close-to-home option that could work very well for you. See the manual for readings and more information on this and other topics related to peer observation.
Okay. Any comments on the video? Obviously, we didn't show the whole pre-conference, the whole post-conference, or the whole lesson. But just some snippets. And what do you think ouch. I've got this clip and I just pinched my finger. What do you think that was the benefit to the teacher who was observed?